Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your co-hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. Hope you've been playing some stuff because we're getting close to the end of the year and Game Awards time is coming up. So that's something we're going to be talking quite a bit about this week.
Yes, I have a couple of things we'll be discussing in the what we've been playing, but before that, there's been quite a bit of news since we last recorded.
Yeah, so the first thing, this is maybe a couple weeks old now, but the Steam Deck was delayed 2 months. I was not in the initial wave that was supposed to release in December or like ship in December. Mm-hmm. I was in sort of the second wave, so I probably would have gotten it in January. Mm-hmm. But everything slides back 2 months now. I assume because of the chip shortage and all of that stuff that's going on. So I should not expect to get mine until February, which is a little bit of a bummer, but you understand based on current world events. But anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. The next thing is the GTA Trilogy. It's a weird title, the Trilogy Definitive Edition. I'm not even saying the title correctly because it's bizarre, but anyway, that's out. And it's a complete mess.
Yeah, Rockstar came out and was like, yeah, we get it. We messed up. So they've committed to fixing it, and they also have said they're going to relist all the original games on platforms.
Yeah, because they pulled it from PC, and therefore, like when they put the Trilogy Definitive Edition up on PC, they removed like the old versions of the game that you could buy from like Steam.
Which had a ton of like mods and like there was communities around all of those games because they've been out for so long. And these new ones, these definitive ones, I believe I heard were just based on the mobile versions of the game and are just incredibly buggy.
Yeah, there's one hilarious bug that you can look up where like if you kind of wiggle the car or like your screen back and forth while you're driving, your car will just like expand and get like really wide. That, and so until it's like basically taking up the entire road, but there's no collision as well, so you're like driving through other cars and people, and I think the car eventually like sinks through the ground. It's like bizarre stuff, but it's a complete mess to say the least.
They're gonna relist all the old games, and they've also said that anyone who bought the definitive edition in quotes is going to get free versions of all of the originals on those platforms as well. So
that's what they should have done to begin with.
I agree. So they're trying to make it better, but yeah, not a super rocky release for something that could have just been a home run of a game. But
yeah, because they have a money printing machine in GTA 5 like online and stuff like that. And so you would think that they would do these games justice, but apparently they did not.
I love to think about what GTA 6 is going to be, and it's probably years and years away, but I mean, how do you top something that is a money-making machine like GTA 5? Like, what do you do? Well, I mean, obviously they've learned that the multiplayer is giant, so you got to imagine that's like step one in GTA 6 is like a fully featured, even crazier multiplayer world, but I don't know. I don't even know the setting it would be or the time period.
Well, so I want to speculate on that because I heard somebody bring up something. I forget which podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about this, and they mentioned that those trilogy of games that came out is like such a sort of landmark in terms of like open world games that it seems like Rockstar has essentially been sort of remaking them a little bit on new generations. So like GTA 4 was like not in terms of like characters and story, but definitely in terms of setting is like a remake of 3 because it's like the same location, right? And then GTA 5 is sort of like the San Andreas one. So that makes me wonder, will GTA 6 be like a Vice City type of a thing?
That's interesting. Yeah, like a Miami type game, but set in the modern day is definitely something that's interesting to me. It'd probably be like heavily boat based because there's so much like water stuff.
I think that could be cool. So that's my like speculation. I don't know anything about it, but that would be something to look forward to.
I am interested. I never really got into the GTA 5 multiplayer because, I think you're similar to me in that the main time that you played GTA 5 was on Xbox 360.
Yeah, I haven't touched it since then.
So, I mean, the game has changed so much. They added like first person,
Yeah.
and there's like now like HD textures and whatnot. It's been on 100 different consoles or whatever. But yeah, I played Red Dead, so I have like some idea of what Rockstar is capable of. But I never really got into the multiplayer of that either. Did you?
I played a little bit of it, but they're like, I don't know, shooting and stuff is not like something I would want to base like a multiplayer game I get super into on. Like it's passable, but it's not like you play Destiny because the shooting mechanics and that are like super satisfying and like really well done. So you want to like build a multiplayer around that kind of an experience, or at least I do. Like if it's something I'm going to get into, I want the mechanics to be that satisfying. But like with Rockstar stuff, it's just like, that's just like an element that you deal with as you're like getting through the story. I don't want to necessarily spend a lot of time with those.
But I feel
mechanics.
like they definitely heard that criticism from Red Dead. I feel like there was a lot. I mean, everyone loves Red Dead Redemption 2, but there were also some people that were pretty vocal about like, hey, like running and having momentum in this game doesn't feel super good, and like the shooting is not great, and also like the mission design could be a little more like conducive to creativity. I guess is how. Yeah. But I don't know how much of that they're going to take and run with, and how much they're just going to say like, well, we just need to focus on multiplayer. We don't really need to focus on the campaign or changing mechanics.
I feel like they will focus on the story because GTA, was it GTA Online that didn't even launch until like well after the main game came out? Am I thinking of the right thing?
Yes, I believe that is correct, because I think I would have dived in. I remember like playing the campaign and it being great, and then I feel like a little bit later they were like, hey, we're finally releasing multiplayer and it's going to have bank heists and stuff, which it did not for a long time. But yeah, I mean, it could be a thing like they do with Halo, where they're like, hey, guess what? Multiplayer is happening right now, and eventually the campaign's going to come out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they handle that, but it seems like the way they typically do it is to launch like the story, and then later they'll be like, well, here's the multiplayer, and they kind of handle them not entirely separately, but basically separately, so that they can sort of focus on one and then the other.
What if they do see what Microsoft is doing and they're like, this is genius, and they're like, GTA 6 is now, it's free. The multiplayer part is free. So dive in. There are an insane amount of microtransactions, but the multiplayer will always be free. You can always inhabit that world, and then the campaign is coming later, and it will be $60.
That's interesting. I wonder, because it is just GTA Online, right? It's not GTA 5. I wonder if they just throw a bunch of updates at that and call that their multiplayer, and then just release a campaign for GTA 6.
Well, but
even though the engine is for sure going to be, you would think, a lot better for GTA 6 than GTA 5.
Something to think about. Here, all right. Let's decide right now. Do you think we will hear anything about GTA 6 at E3 next year?
That's a really good question.
I believe no, because I think one, we're too far out, and two, you were texting me earlier this week about how next year is just going to be a juggernaut of a year as far as like games to talk about at E3 and things like that. Frankly, Breath of the Wild 2 is probably going to be what everyone's talking about, I would hope.
I feel like no as well, just because they're on a slow timetable for releases anyway, and with the pandemic on top of that, that's for sure causing things to be even slower. I feel like we're probably at least another year or two away from hearing anything about GTA 6.
I mean, we got like a a screenshot of Red Dead Redemption 2 years before we actually even saw gameplay of it.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna guess no as well. Even if I would like to say yes, I feel like it's probably a safer bet to just say no.
yeah.
But speaking of things that are announced or coming up, there was a week or two ago now, Thunderful did a game showcase. Did you get a chance to watch that?
I skipped through this. I like Luke Skywalker as a guy. So I'm going to say that up front. I don't know that this needed to happen in the way that it did.
It was weird. It was like they were going for one of those Devolver Digital.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Yeah.
But it was like it did not match up to what they normally do. So it was like they were trying to bring that same energy and it just didn't work.
Weird to do just like in the middle of November also.
Yeah, it did feel like an E3 press conference that got delayed somehow and they just like randomly dropped it months later. I don't know. It was strange timing for sure, but the announcements I thought were pretty cool. So
they had some cool stuff.
I do like the SteamWorld games. I played SteamWorld Dig 2. That was one of my favorite games that year. And they've got like a bunch of other ones in different styles. Like there's one that's sort of like a turn-based RPG. Mm-hmm. That I really want to check out. I do have it on Stadia because I think it was a Stadia Pro title at one point, and I've been meaning to check that out, but I haven't done it yet. But the next game in that series is called SteamWorld Headhunter, and it's supposed to move from 2D to 3D, and so it's going to be like a third-person co-op action game, and so I'm kind of curious to see what they do with that. That could be pretty cool.
I'm interested. It gives me a little bit kind of that Oddworld. What was that Oddworld game? Stranger's Wrath. It gives me kind of Stranger's Wrath vibes. Whereas, like Abe's Odyssey and all that stuff was always 2D, Munch's Journey or whatever. And then they went 3D. And I don't know if people were super into it, but I was always really interested in it, even though I never played it. It seems like a similar world, though.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the Oddworld games. I know didn't they have one that came out? It was a 2D game that came out earlier this year, though.
Yeah, I think it was like a next-gen game for some reason.
Yeah.
And it was like the original people. Did that come out, or is it still coming out? No, I don't know. If it did come out, it didn't make a big splash.
I remember it coming out, and yeah, there were some people that put out some videos on it like the week it came out, and then it just sort of fell off of everybody's radar almost immediately. But so they have that, and then they have another game called The Gunk, which is a third-person sci-fi adventure that IGN describes as shades of Luigi's Mansion and Super Mario Sunshine. That's coming out in December, so not too much longer, actually, and it's going to be a Game Pass game. This looked kind of interesting. I don't really know what to expect from it, but I will, since it's on Game Pass, there's no reason not to check it out. Yeah, there's
no reason.
But the thing that
if you don't play it.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that really caught my eye, though, was this game called Wavetale that I did play.
Yes, you texted me that you were playing it, and you said it was really good.
I've completed it. So
how many hours did it take you?
It took me a little over 5 hours, but you can definitely get through it in less than that. Mm-hmm. It is... the art style is kind of hard to explain. It looks almost hand-drawn, kind of squiggly.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I really liked the art style of it, and it's just this really, really satisfying movement is basically what it's all about. So you play this little girl who has this like futuristic net-like thing that she can use to hit enemies and to collect items, and so she can double jump and she can dash, and then eventually, what's in the trailer, you see she kind of encounters this like shadowy figure that's in the water, and she's able to like put her feet on the shadow's feet and basically surf around the water. And so it kind of felt actually quite a bit like the Bowser's Fury expansion to Super
really?
Mario Odyssey, or not Odyssey, 3D World, where you're like riding around, pretty fast on
At
the
the speed of
water.
sound.
And then you jump off onto these little islands and you do these like platforming sections. And they're not really puzzles, I wouldn't say. They're more just like platforming, and you might have to deal with some enemies. And then you use these sort of towers to like clear away some of the like black muck, which is also, very similar to Bowser's Fury. And you just keep doing that until you kind of clear the world. And there's like a pretty good story that goes along with it, and some good characters. I really enjoyed it. It's like such a short thing, and it did launch as a Stadia Pro title, which I think is cool. It's like one of those things where, so like Sony has PlayStation Plus and Microsoft has Xbox Live, and it's the same as Stadia Pro. You subscribe. Every month they'll throw some games your way that you can claim to your library. But they don't do what Google does, where they're like, okay, here's a new game that's a timed exclusive, and it's a Stadia Pro title immediately. Go ahead and add it to your library. Like, I find that pretty cool. Like, when they bring a game, the same month they bring the game to Stadia, it's like immediately a Pro title, so you don't have to buy it.
That is nice.
Yeah. That's something they do that the others don't.
I haven't played this, but I watched the trailer a couple times, and I rewatched it after you told me it was really good. Do you know what it kind of reminds me of, even though I haven't played this game or the game I'm about to talk about?
What?
The traversal and combat and stuff, and almost the art style as well, kind of remind me of that upcoming game Solar Ash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Because you're kind of like floating and not gliding, but kind of like you're not on water, but you do sort of like roller skate around, it seems like, in Solar Ash.
Yeah.
In a similar way.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that. Yeah. When does Solar Ash come out? Isn't that December?
I think soon.
I think it's
I should
pretty
know,
soon.
because I am definitely going to buy it.
Yeah, I'm going to pick that game up as well. But yeah, no, the Wavetale, just the movement mechanics, because you can go from like surfing around on the water pretty quick, and you can like, if you hold down the jump button, you'll like launch really high in the air, and then you can move that into like a dash and like a double jump, and then if you hold down the jump button, she'll like take her net thing and like sort of helicopter it around above her head, and you can hover, and so you can really build up momentum just like chaining all of those different movement mechanics together in a way. And like the combat's it's very simple. It's not super complex or interesting, but like the movement mechanics are so satisfying that it was hard to like stop playing once I picked it up. So I really recommend it. It is a timed exclusive for Stadia, so if you don't play games on Stadia, it will eventually come out next year on other consoles. But I want to say it's $20-$25. Maybe it's $30. I'm not sure. But it's definitely worth checking out. So yeah, definitely recommend that one. That one was one of those games that I don't know if it'll necessarily make my top 10, just because there's a lot of games to talk about. But like, it's very, very good, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, speaking briefly about Hyper Light Drifter, kind of. Well, Solar Ash is kind of the spiritual sequel to Hyper Light Drifter. Did you ever play Dead Cells?
I did, briefly.
Not today, but earlier this week, they announced that they're having sort of a like Everyone Is Here style crossover event, like reminiscent of Smash Brothers, for their game. It's a free update, and it includes 6 game crossovers, one of which is Hyper Light Drifter. Hollow Knight, Blasphemous, Skull the Hero Slayer, Guacamelee, Hyper Light Drifter, and Curse of the Dead Gods. They're all going to be in Dead Cells now.
What? That's crazy. Like, how? Like,
I don't know. It's happening on November 22nd, which is 2 days from now.
Like, you can play as the Hyper Light Drifter in Dead Cells?
If that's the case, I am going to pick up Dead Cells.
I was going to say, I think I own Dead Cells on Steam, but I have not played it in a long time.
It's probably got a lot of updates to go through.
I would bet so, yeah. Speaking of...
I didn't...
Oh, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, speaking of like Smash style bringing everything together, there was a new game announcement this week called Multiverses that's supposed to...
What do you think about this?
I don't know. Well, it's free to play for one, and it's got characters like Batman, Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and Bugs Bunny, and like characters like that. Like, that's insane, first off. But I don't know. I feel like especially now that Smash is kind of at the end of its road, so to speak, I feel like we're going to see more of these, like, Smash likes is what they're going to start calling them.
Yeah, so there was the
Nickelodeon
Cartoon Network one.
It was
Nickelodeon one. I don't know. I was thinking about this week because I saw footage from this Multiverse show or game, and it just looks like cheap to me, and I don't know that it is actually cheap, but I think my brain is like, this is like a tie-in game, and like I have been conditioned to think that all weird tie-in games are awful. Yeah, and so there's like nothing there between a rock and a hard place, because if they want it to look authentic, they need to make it look like that. But it also, like, through no fault of its own, looks incredibly cheap to me. Is it similar for you?
Yeah, it was the same with the Nickelodeon one as well, where it was like, it's a little bit like that kind of off-brand type of a thing, where you've got like your Coca-Cola, but then you go to like Walmart and they've got Walmart Cola brand or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like
exactly
that. And I feel like it's going to be the same for all of them. They're going to just feel like off-brand Smash.
I was thinking about it, and like I can't think of a way that it wouldn't look like that. You know, like I don't know what they could do besides like they're hindered by having to change the art style for every character, kind of. Yeah. And I think they have to be true. They can't like make everything claymation or something. Like,
right.
I don't know. I don't know that there's a way to successfully make this look and play good.
Yeah, and it was a little bit like that. It's different in this case because it's characters from specific shows that you know. And like, how do you make Arya Stark, who's not a cartoon character, look right when you're going up against the animated version of Batman, but also like Shaggy and Bugs Bunny, who feature very, very different animation styles? It is weird. It's going to be weird seeing those characters all on screen at the same time, no matter what you do. But like, I don't know how you find a sort of a commonality in terms of animation that's going to make it work.
I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately, like I like big crossovers and things like that, but I just don't know, man. I don't know how they can make it good, because right now, from where I'm sitting, it just looks janky and, like you said, off-brand, even though it is the exact opposite of that. It's on-brand. It's on this brand, but it's not Smash, and it looks weird.
And I feel like that's going to be the case for all of them. All Smash likes are going to look like the off-brand, because Smash was like not just the original, but like really, really good in like every conceivable way. And so I feel like any company that tries to make a Smash like is now just gonna feel like the off-brand.
You know what it maybe is Smash Brothers works because all of those characters were previously in video games.
Right.
But
so there's a video game form of them.
Yeah, we're used to seeing them in like 3D. Whereas, like, this is the first time I'm seeing a 3D Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, you know? Like,
or a 3D animated
Batman.
Arya Stark.
Yeah, all of those, like, they shouldn't exist. Or, like, they haven't existed, so my brain won't accept them. And that's maybe the problem. Maybe you can
it was still the case for Nickelodeon, even though those characters were all animated before.
It's true. I never played that PlayStation All-Stars, but I was always interested in it. And I still stand by, like, I think if there was a fighting game where you could play as Master Chief, if there was a Microsoft fighting game, that's something I maybe would be interested in. But I don't know.
Right.
Maybe it's because it's all TV properties. I'm just like, I don't know.
I mean, it is free to play, and those are a lot of names of characters that will get people's attention. So I feel like this will at least have a brief moment in the spotlight when it comes out.
I didn't know it was free to play. How are they making money?
I think there's supposed to be like cosmetic items or whatever. I'm not sure. Wow. I don't know. I'm not interested enough to look into it either.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I will play this, but it's just so bizarre that I had to bring it up.
What do you think about this Dragon Ball The Breakers game?
Did you watch this trailer?
I skipped through it a little bit. It's a like 1v7, one person is Cell, everyone else is like not a Dragon Ball Z character, they're just like a background character, and you're just like, it's like that Friday night or Friday the 13th game or whatever, right? Or Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, Dead by Daylight. So it's
stalked.
An asymmetrical multiplayer where like you're most likely going to play one of the 7 characters trying to escape, and then there's another player that's playing a Cell that's trying to like hunt everybody down and kill them. And I like, if you're gonna do one of those in the Dragon Ball universe, which that in and of itself is insane and like out of nowhere, but if you're gonna do that, like having Cell be the one to like go after everyone makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I don't know who was asking for this or where it came from. It just feels so completely out of nowhere. But
this seems like after Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, and then like they fired Kojima and they were like, no, we're making pachinko machines now. But also, here is this Metal Gear Solid game that is just like set in another dimension, and it's a horde mode, and there are portals.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that game. Is that Metal
Gear
like that. Survive?
Yeah, like it doesn't make any sense, but they have the property, so like why not? Let's try a new kind of game.
Like this is a popular style of game. Why not try it in our universe? And they did just like, I think they're using the assets from those Dragon Ball Xenoverse games. Yeah. And so sense. It was like super easy for them to just like take all of that and turn it into an asymmetrical multiplayer game. So like I guess good on them for finding like a cheap, easy way to like pump out a game that's like in a style of game that's popular right now. Yeah. But like, I don't know where it came from or why, but it's very interesting.
Probably the weirdest piece of news we have this week.
Yeah, I remember I got off work and I saw that the MinMax people had done like a video reacting to the trailer, and I started watching. I was like, what even is this? Like I could not have guessed this was going to happen in a million years, but kind of hilarious and insane at the same time. But I also feel like Dragon Ball fans are going to be all over it. So far be it from me to judge, I guess, but
should we talk about Halo Infinite?
We should, because we've both been playing it. It was a surprise drop during Xbox's 20th anniversary sort of celebration stream they did like a week or two ago. And yeah, I pretty much downloaded it immediately, and I have played some and do have some thoughts, but I'm very curious to hear yours because I think between the two of us, you're the bigger Halo fan.
It was the first... Probably like a lot of people our age, it was the first console shooter I ever played. So like I remember in real time trying to learn. I don't think I had an N64, but I don't think I ever played. No, I must have played GoldenEye. I guess I should say this is the first twin stick shooter, even though that's not actually what it is. But what I'm saying is like
thinking of like multiplayer. I guess not even online, because the first Halo wouldn't have been.
This is the first game where my left thumb was controlling my movement and my right thumb was controlling where I looked.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I remember I went to a birthday party from one of my good friends, and all we did that night was play Halo on 2 Xboxes that are linked together through like a hub back in the day.
That was mind-blowing back in the day.
Yeah, it was crazy to me. And I remember we played it so much, and for like the first like hour to 2 hours, I could not wrap my head around the movement of like left thumb moves, right thumb looks. And then it just clicked with me. And I remember that night, I had a dream where I was moving around, and I was like, oh, I should walk forward, and my brain was like, oh, to walk forward, you need to like make the muscles in your thumb move, and so it was very surreal because I didn't even feel my feet moving. I only felt my thumbs moving, and I was walking around in this dream.
Weird.
But after that, I was hooked. So that's all to say that I am super into Halo. Not really into the lore. I never played 1 or 2 because I never owned an Xbox One, or sorry, an Xbox. But I had an Xbox 360, and the first one I ever bought for myself was Halo 3.
Yeah.
And that I played the campaign. I don't remember anything about it. I don't know anything about Master Chief except that he was a clone or something. I don't really know. I looked up his backstory on Wikipedia one time.
I don't know if I'm just like a bad video game fan, but like Halo, the story, I've always found pretty incomprehensible, and I've never been like a big fan of it. But I'm sure like the big Halo fans and defenders would be very angry at hearing me say that. But
I mean, they always say like, oh, the books are so good, you got to check out the books. And I do believe that probably there is a rich universe there, because the Halo Wikipedia, whatever it's called, Halopedia, is dense, and there's like a lot to learn. But I don't know anything about that. I know the Flood are bad. Mm-hmm. But and I know that Ring was designed. I actually did watch a TikTok that was like, here is the entire Halo timeline in like a minute and a half. So I am somewhat well versed in it, like from a very wide perspective. But I think I played Halo 4, maybe, whatever the last one was that came out on 360, and then I skipped whichever ones came.
I think that was Reach, because that's the one I also played.
I don't think I played Reach.
Oh, you didn't?
I played the
Reach.
First one with like those red weapons that were like all floating around. The one with the
ODST?
What was that thing called? No, hold on. Let's actually do a little bit of research. Halo games.
I was gonna say, because I did own an original Xbox, but I didn't get it until much later in the generation. So like I sort of missed the boat on Halo 1 and 2. I did go back and play through Halo 2, but my first one that I really spent any time with the multiplayer was Halo 3, and I couldn't get into it because I felt like maybe this was just not for me and that I missed the boat. And then like Call of Duty came out like a month later, like Call of Duty 4, the first Modern Warfare game, and that just like sucked me in, and I just never went back to Halo until Halo Reach came out, and then I played a bunch of that, and I sort of enjoyed that one more, but then I just like fell off of Halo entirely.
Halo 4 was the last one I played, I believe. I think was Halo 3 the first one that had online multiplayer?
Yeah,
because the original Xbox didn't have online.
That was early 360 days. So like the 360 came out in, I want to say 06. And I think Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4 came out in 2007.
Yes, I think you are right. Because I remember I was just going to college, and I like had my Xbox, and I was playing like Mass Effect and Halo and whatnot.
Yeah, I think all of those came out in the same year. That 2007 was an insane year for games, but yeah.
So I skipped over 5. And if there was one after 5.
I think 5 was the last one.
Really?
I also heard that those, like the last one in particular, like they almost took it more down a Call of Duty path, and fans did not like that.
Yeah, they had you had like jumper jets or whatever, and a bunch of other stuff that was random. But if I flash forward to today, I think that this Halo Infinite is pretty good, is what I'm going to say initially. I logged in. There's a very clear path for newcomers, but I definitely played with bots for like the first like hour and a half that I played, just to get used to playing Halo with a keyboard and mouse. Mm-hmm. And I had to rebind some keys and whatnot. But once I got that down, I think this is also maybe the first. Is this the first Halo with bots?
Like a bot mode?
Yeah, like previous to this, I don't think you could play with like AI counterparts.
You're probably right. I mean, I never played 4 or 5, so I don't know, but
But I had a lot of fun playing with bots, and then I finally was like, all right, I just need to dive in and see what this is like with real people. And I did pretty good. It's like riding an old bike, you know, like, it feels enough same as it did that I was able to jump back in. And there's definitely some new stuff, like the equipment is new and whatnot, but, I did pretty good. I mean, my team lost in the first match that I played, but I also did the best on my team, which I felt pretty good about. You get in a zone with Halo where you're just like, it feels really, really good to get like a double kill or like a triple kill, and it sometimes happens very easily because you constantly have grenades. It seems like, if you die as frequently as I do.
I wanted to say that, like, so my initial experience was I jumped in and I did play like a round with bots, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna just go into quick play and do this thing. And like the first couple of matches, I did not really enjoy. I was like, well, you know, it just feels like more Halo. I'm not sure if Halo's my thing. I'm more interested in the campaign. I'll play through that once it comes out. But then we were texting a little bit about it. And so I decided to jump in and give it a second shot. But this time I jumped into Big Team Battle. And that is so much more fun that I like got hooked on that mode. And I was like, oh, okay, now I see. Now I get it. And so like I also started adjusting, because a weird thing about Halo for me is it's an arena shooter. So there's like no aim down sights. And you're just like, you're running around picking up weapons around the map as opposed to having like a loadout. And so something about not being able to ADS and just like hip firing with like, and just like focusing on where your crosshair is, something about that just like really throws my brain off, and I like cannot seem to aim consistently that way. And so it's like a little bit of an adjustment for me, and I felt like I started making that adjustment last night while I was playing, and suddenly it was a lot more fun to me. And I think it partially was the big team battle where you have like larger, more open spaces, and as opposed to like the smaller, more like arena style maps. And so it started clicking with me, and I started really enjoying it. And so if you try it, because it is free, I would say try Big Team Battle, and also like immediately swap out your starting weapons, because they suck. And
I will say, the pistol though, I have found to be pretty good, because it is pretty long range, and you can really pick people off if they're not paying attention to you.
That's fair. That the pistol probably is worth hanging on to over the like assault rifle you start out with. And another thing I learned about that assault rifle, if you do end up stuck with it and you have to use it, which is going to happen sometimes, but don't just hold the trigger down on it, because once the crosshairs get outside the circle, you're just like not hitting anything. So you do sort of have to, unless you're close range, you do sort of have to burst fire with it. But no, like you said, I would get off to like a rough start, and then like something crazy would always happen to like really get me back into it and start having fun again. Like in Big Team Battle, there's one game mode where, and I'm not a Halo person, so I don't know the terminology for all of this stuff, so I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but like you go collect, I think they're like charges, and then you run them back to your side and input them into some sort of container. And so you have both sides, or like both teams, sort of battling over those charges and trying to take them back to each other's side. And you can also like go steal them from the other team and then return them to your side as well. And so like a round is decided once like a team has collected 5 of them. And then it goes to the next round, and whoever collects 5 wins the second round. And so I was playing around and I was struggling with it, and I was not doing very well. And then like I ran around to like their side where their containers were, and I saw like 2 guys coming up with those charges, and I just like threw 2 grenades down, and I blew both of them up. And then like a bunch of other guys were there, and I threw down a couple more grenades because I had also picked up some plasma grenades, and I blew them up as well. And I ended up on this like massive kill streak because of it. And then like somebody eventually sorted me, but I was like all it took was just like running back there and getting like a huge multi-kill with a bunch of grenades to like turn this thing around. And
That's like
suddenly it became super fun.
That's the great thing about Halo, I feel like, is the time to kill is not as immediate as other games where like you really have to have your head on a swivel in a game like Call of Duty Black Ops where like someone can pick you off immediately. And this, like, you were talking about grenades. I like that new grenade they made that is like a disruptor grenade because you can just whip that at a vehicle and it just like disables the vehicle for like 10 seconds. Which I think is really cool. And the grapple also is another piece of equipment that I feel like adds a ton to the game and is really fun.
Yeah, the vehicle disabling thing happened to me as well, but that was another one of the stories I was going to tell. It was a different map, a different time I was playing that same game mode, and I was struggling, and then like randomly they dropped a big tank, and I was like, well, I'm taking this. So I jumped in and I like drove it all the way back to where their like containers were, and I just started blowing everybody up. And I went on another massive like kill streak where I was just like tanking everybody. And then
it's so easy to have those hero moments in Halo, I feel like.
And that was like, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, even if you're kind of struggling and you get out to like a rough start, like something insane will happen. Like there's a way to turn it around in a big way, and suddenly you just end up having a really fun time. And that game actually was very, very close as well. Like we had both teams had scored like 2 points by winning 2 rounds, and the last round we did end up losing, but the last round came down to like we needed one more charge to deposit in order to win. But their side also needed just one more, and they managed to do it before us. So it was like, even if, you know, the round's not going your way, it'll be like a close game as well. So
yeah, I don't know what their matchmaking algorithm is, but I feel like it's pretty solid because in the couple of matches I've played, it has always been like pretty close, like right down to it. And also, I've been watching people play it on Twitch, and they've been having pretty close matches as well. It seems like I've seen very few just like domination things where one side has like, you know, 49 points and the other side only has like 10 points.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like last night playing Big Team Battle like completely changed my mind on Halo Infinite. I was all set to come into this podcast and be like, I don't know, it's more Halo. I don't know if it's for me. But now, like after playing a few rounds of Big Team Battle last night, I'm like all on board. And I'm like ready to play more. So
a thing that is a little bit of a bummer that I heard about is, so the campaign is coming out soon in like I think 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
When it actually launches. But co-op for the campaign doesn't happen until like next year at some point. They're delaying that for some reason.
Oh really? I hadn't heard that.
Which is a bummer because I feel like we could have played through that and it would have been super fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're probably just going to play through the campaign solo now and then maybe revisit it.
Right. Yeah, that is a bummer.
Forge also, which is their like map editor or whatever, is also not coming out with the initial release, which I feel like it's going to add an even crazier layer to the replayability because people are going to start making their own maps and like recreating old maps that are going to be very nostalgic and creating like crazy new maps that have like interesting gravity and like crazy constructions on them and stuff. So I feel like this game is like queued up to have very long legs, like a long tail.
Yeah, and it does have a battle pass, which it's my understanding that people were not happy with initially because like the progression of it was like super duper slow. But they have updated that where I think you now get like experience towards the battle pass after every round, as opposed to just like having to complete certain challenges, many of which are like tough to do. So,
yeah, I think that was a smart move for them. And they did it almost immediately. Like, they did it, like, maybe 2 days after releasing the beta.
Yeah, well, so they released it, and the backlash to, like, how slow the progression was almost immediate. And then, like, the next day, they had fixed it and changed it, and there were articles going out about it. So I was like, wow, they're right on this. So that's a good thing. Do you think you'll get the battle pass, or do you see yourself playing a lot more of the multiplayer?
I don't know. I need to see if my other friends haven't grabbed it yet, and I want to see if they're into it, because if they start to play as well, and it's something where I can like get them together and play sometimes, I might consider getting it. But if it's just going to be a thing like where I play on my own every once in a while, then I don't know. Or if like we start playing it pretty regularly, especially if they have like a duos weekend or something and we get really into it, I might pick up the battle pass. But I also like, I don't know if any of the stuff on the battle pass is stuff that I actually need. Like all of the armor seems kind of samey to me right now.
Right.
Like nothing really jumps out at me as being interesting to look at.
That's what I thought,
I think if I got different colors, I would be fine, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get different colors with the battle pass, but like I thought the same, where it was like, well, if I had leveled up on my battle pass, and it was like, well, if you have the battle pass, you get this skin, and I was like, that looks pretty similar to the one I already have.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to pay for that. So I don't know.
Something I would pay for, I feel like the only customizability that I actually do want is to customize that like AI companion that you have, basically your ghost. Because right now there's like 5 voices for it. I don't super like any of them. I left it on the default butler one. But if they came out with a crazy one that was like a celebrity, I might pay $5 for that. But I don't think I'd buy a whole battle pass for it.
Yeah, and there's like customization options for the weapons as well, which seemed interesting. I almost didn't expect that, because like your loadout is not like, you don't really have a loadout. You just like, you always start with the same stuff, and then you just pick up random weapons throughout the map.
Which I like. I like that aspect of it.
And so I thought it was pretty cool that you can actually customize those as well. So I don't know. I don't know if I care enough to actually pay for it, or if I will put enough time into it to make the battle pass worth it, which is always a big question.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely interested in playing more of it, which is not something I would have said like 2 days ago. But after Big Team Battle, I think that's the way to go. And maybe some of that is because I'm sort of more of a Battlefield fan. And like the Big Team Battle feels like the Halo version of like Battlefield, where you have like bigger, more open maps, and like vehicles are involved. And speaking of which, I did play Battlefield 2042.
Yes. How is it?
And it is, as you've probably heard, a little buggy, and not just a little, but like buggy. There was one point where randomly my weapon would not like let me move up or down. I could only move horizontally, and so I died in that reset, and it was fine. So you get like weird little bugs like that, but then you also get like bugs where, one I've run into multiple times, where you'll like join a match and it'll be at the very end where it's like in tiebreaker mode, but like nothing's happening, and like the match will never end. And so everybody's like trying to back out of it, and more people are joining it, and it's like, that round is broken, you can cancel this round. Like, that's happened to me a couple of times. It's silly, dumb stuff like that I feel like they should be able to patch out pretty easily. There was a day one patch that I have not downloaded and checked out yet, so I don't know if any of that stuff is fixed yet. But the thing, EA does a stupid thing where they will say, okay, this is when our release date is, and we're going to have a day one patch, but we do have a subscription service, and we do have like an ultimate edition of this game. So we're going to incentivize people getting that stuff by saying you can play this game a week early. Now, obviously the problem with that is the day one patch isn't going to be there. So you're not putting your best foot forward when you're like, hey, give us more money and you can play this early, but it's going to be like a broken version of it. Like, why would you do that? They do it all the time. Yeah. They've done it for years, but so I don't know. Like, if you look online for like Battlefield 2042 anything, you're just going to see like article after article of people like complaining about the bugs and how like what shape the game is in right now. And I feel like that's not a good thing for the game. However, having said all of that, I still think the game is really fun, and I actually really like it. It's the first Battlefield game that I've cared about since Battlefield 4. I did not like Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5 because they were like World War One and World War II settings.
Yeah.
So this one I actually want to like, and fortunately I do. I'm actually enjoying it. I've been watching a lot of Shroud play it as well, and every time I like turn on somebody streaming it, it makes me want to jump in and play more of it. So I have the feeling this will be similar to Battlefield 4, where it launches in like not a great state and everybody's complaining about it, but like if you give them time, they will fix it. And because like that's what happened with Battlefield 4. I actually didn't jump into that one for like the first, I don't know, like 6 months, and by the time I jumped in, like they had fixed everything and it was working fine. And that one ended up being like one of the more well-liked Battlefields. So I'm guessing it'll be very similar for 2042. But I like it. I'm enjoying it. And I now it's the question of, am I looking for a multiplayer game? Do I want to play Halo Infinite or do I want to play Battlefield 2042?
I mean, I have definitely watched some people play Battlefield 2042, and it does look like you can do some pretty cool stuff in it. Like, especially with, like, the wingsuit and stuff. Like, you can it feels like it's got a really good power fantasy going for it.
It does, yeah. Like, like I said, I've watched a lot of Shroud play it, and I've watched him do this thing that I've also seen, like, videos on, like, Reddit and stuff of this, where they'll take the wingsuit and they'll, like, jump off of something and, like, wingsuit down, like, behind enemies, or they'll, like, fly above them and they'll, like, stop the wingsuit so they're just like falling, and they'll like throw out C4 or like a grenade or something, and then they'll like pop back into the wingsuit and fly away, and then like drop the wingsuit again, hit the button to blow up the explosive and get the kill, and then wingsuit away again without ever touching the ground. So you can do like insane stuff like that. Like I could probably never do it, but like it's cool to see like other people doing it. And yeah, the Shroud will like fly around behind somebody, like land, shoot a bunch of enemies, and then wingsuit away again. It's just like, again, I could probably not do that, but it's very cool to watch.
Well, should we talk about the nominations for the Game Awards that are happening on December 9th?
Yeah, do we want to go through? I listed, this is not the complete list that I've put in our show notes, but we can go over some of these categories.
Yeah, I think just brief, like, specific. I mean, number one we have to talk about is Game of the Year. So the nominees are Deathloop, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a good list, other than I think It Takes Two is the one that stands out as the obvious one that's like, why is this here, as opposed to like...
I have heard that it's like the best co-op game of like the last decade.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because my thought was, why is that there instead of like Forza Horizon 5, which everybody seems to love, or even like Returnal or something like that. But I don't know. Do you want to make a call which one you think is going to win?
I think that people loved Deathloop, and so I think it's between Metroid Dread and Deathloop as far as like the thing that most people have played and liked.
I was gonna say I think it's between Deathloop and Resident Evil Village, but for me personally, I don't think I would choose either of those.
Yeah,
I think I would choose Metroid Dread or Psychonauts 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Psychonauts 2 actually got a lot of nominations in here. So maybe the thing that gets the most nominations and the least awards is sort of my guess for how this is going to go down. But
I mean, yeah, like best game direction is very similar. It's Deathloop, It Takes Two, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. The only difference is it also has Returnal
instead of Metroid
which
Dread.
I have not played. Yeah.
How do you define game direction?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm sure there will be like a little. I think they did a thing last year. They were like, well, what is this category? And they sort of described it a little bit. And I hope they do that again this year.
They almost need to do that before voting happens, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, based on my limited understanding of what game direction is, if I'm thinking of it as like direction the way you would think of with a movie, I would say probably this is going to be Psychonauts 2 or Ratchet and Clank.
Oh, really? I could see Ratchet and Clank doing it because I know that's like a very cinematic game.
Yeah. And to an extent, they both are. Psychonauts 2 and Ratchet and Clank are pretty similar games in terms of like the genre that they fill. So I can see either of those two taking it, but game direction might be different from like film direction.
Yeah.
So hard to say. Best narrative, Deathloop again. Deathloop got a lot of these categories as well.
Yeah.
It Takes Two, Life is Strange, True Colors, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Psychonauts 2. I've heard nothing but good things about Guardians of the Galaxy to the point where
I've also similarly heard that.
To the point where I wonder if maybe that one will take it or Life is Strange.
Yeah, I feel like not enough people are into Life is Strange because it is like so divisive and a bit of a bummer of a series. I could see Guardians of the Galaxy taking it though, because I feel like I've heard a lot more chatter about that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot more people praising Guardians of the Galaxy than any of the rest of them on this list. So, art direction: The Artful Escape, Deathloop, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Just to throw out another game that I've played recently, The Artful Escape, I played on Game Pass, and this is another like 4 or 5 hour long game, so it's super short. Really good art style and really good music. It's also nominated for Best Score in Music. I recommend that game. It's an Annapurna game, so it's sort of like a movie that you have these little like short gameplay segments for. And like Jason Schwartzman does one of the voices, and Lena Headey, who played Cersei from Game of Thrones, is in it, and Mark Strong is in it, and Carl Weathers also does a voice. So they have like some Hollywood level star talent there. So pretty good game. I would recommend checking that one out.
Do you think it'll win?
I think it will not, just because Psychonauts and Ratchet and Clank are maybe the two big hitters on this list. But I just want to throw some praise for Artful Escape so that we don't overlook it. But Best Score and Music, Cyberpunk 2077. Is this the only? Oh no, it also got nominated for Best Role-Playing Game. I was going to say, I almost forgot that would be a game that people are considering for Game Awards this year, because it came out last year.
Yeah, it does feel like forever ago that was. It came out, and then there was the controversy, and then they said they were going to fix it, and now nobody's really talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, I liked Cyberpunk, even though I know how like buggy and messed up it was. But
yeah, I need to go back to it. I just like I played it for a good amount of time and was leveling up, and then I think something else happened, and I sort of dropped off of it for a while, and I still have my save, so I can go back. I just like have not had the time.
Yeah. It's worth it. It's worth playing through to the end, but so moving forward, the next category is Best Audio Design. Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal. And for me, it comes down to either Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart or Returnal.
Yeah. I have heard Returnal is pretty good, but I feel like not enough people have played it because not enough people have PS5s.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the case for Ratchet and Clank as well. But I think
that's a good point.
I think both of those were the ones that were like very clearly to me stand out as being like really, really good in terms of their audio design. Best Indie, 12 Minutes, Death's Door, Inscription, Kena Bridge of Spirits, and Loop Hero. This one's a tough one.
What are your thoughts on this? Yeah. So I haven't played Inscription, but like you, I mean, I guess you're playing it right now, but I have heard it's very good.
Yeah.
Death's Door I liked a lot. It did not blow me away, but I did really enjoy it, and I thought the music was really good. I don't know anything about Kenna Bridge of Spirits. I think it's definitely not going to be 12 minutes.
Yeah. That one, a little surprising, 12 minutes even got the nomination just because it seemed like it was so divisive when it came out.
People did not like it.
Yeah.
I really liked Loop. Probably of all these games, Loop Hero is my favorite, but I don't think it's going to win. It probably is going to be like Inscription or... I think it actually is probably going to be Inscription.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, like right now, I would say Loop Hero, but I have only played like maybe an hour of Inscription, which is like a sort of bizarre, almost horror-like sort of deck builder card-based game. With
I've heard it really evolves.
It does. That's what I've heard as well, that it evolves sort of almost beyond like the card-based stuff, and that there is like other puzzles that you're sort of working through. Really interesting, and I've heard a lot of people say that this is way up there on their like game of the year list. So it would not surprise me if the amount of love that's out there for that game, that it ends up taking it. And maybe I just need to play more of it and see if it sort of strikes that chord with me or not. But yeah, it's an interesting category for sure. Next up is Best Action Game: Back 4 Blood, Chivalry 2, Deathloop, Far Cry 6, and Returnal. What do you think of this category?
I feel like I could see Deathloop sweeping a bunch of these categories because I've heard it's very good, and I do want to play it eventually. And I've heard it's very concise as well. Like, you can really knock it out in a short amount of time. And so I feel like a lot of people have played it. A lot of people like it. I don't think I've heard anything negative about it. So I think my vote is probably for Deathloop, even though I haven't played it.
This is one of those weird things with like award shows where like, could Returnal beat Deathloop in Best Action Game, even though it's not nominated for Best Game, and then Deathloop still win Game of the Year? Like, it's one of those weird like category, like crossover type of questions. Like, how could Returnal beat Deathloop if Returnal wasn't even nominated for Game of the Year, but Deathloop?
Yeah.
And I think Deathloop is the only one in this category that's nominated for Game of the Year. So it would definitely lead you to believe that that one is maybe the one that should win. But I also know there's a lot of love for Returnal, and people were angry that it sort of got snubbed from Game of the Year. So I can see maybe people piling on for Returnal in this category. But yeah, it probably will be Deathloop. I've played Deathloop. I have not finished Deathloop, and I am to the point where I'm not sure if I'll go back to it, because I've played through a good amount of like, because there are kind of these different paths that you can take throughout the loop, and I feel like I've played through each of them. I've just not put them all together yet. And I did sort of spoil myself on the ending of the game a little bit.
Oh, really?
And so I don't know if I care enough to go back to it. It's a game that I like, and there are certain aspects of it that I really like, but like these types of looping games where I have to play stuff multiple times through are not typically games I stick with long term. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the same case for Returnal. Like, I definitely need to put more time into that. Like, I when I got my PS5, that was the first game I picked up. And I got my PS5 at a weird time where I was in the middle of a bunch of other games. So I was, like, trying to find time to play some Returnal in the midst of all of the rest of that. And so I know I have not put enough time into that to, like, have a solid grasp of that game just yet. But my fear is kind of the same thing with Deathloop, where I'll probably put some more hours into it and get to a point where I feel like, yeah, this is pretty good. I get what's going on here. I don't know if I have the stamina to like go all the way through it though. So I'm probably not a great judge for this category, but my guess is it's going to be one of those two games.
And then role-playing, Cyberpunk, Monster Hunter Rise, Scarlet Nexus, Shin Megami Tensei 5, and Tales of Arise. What do you think about this?
For me, it's Tales of Arise, even though I've not finished the game yet.
I've heard that's really good.
I like Cyberpunk, and I liked Scarlet Nexus. I did not finish Scarlet Nexus because the difficulty spikes in that game are insane. and I have heard that the story is just kind of so-so. So I'm not sure where that's going, but I do think it's sort of an underrated game that more people should check out if they get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But Tales of Arise is like, spoilers for maybe our top 10 discussion, but this one's way up there for me.
Really?
It's kind of the Final Fantasy VII remake of this year for me, where it's like this really satisfying like story and character driven game, and this like sprawling RPG of like a Japanese action RPG with like some really cool, interesting things it's doing with combat. And it's a long game. I feel like I'm maybe around the halfway point, maybe a little over the halfway point, and I'm really enjoying it. I want to keep playing it and see where everything's going. I'm enjoying the characters. I really like the game. I think more people should play it for sure. I also feel like it's a little bit of a snub that it didn't get nominated for Game of the Year, but maybe they just need to expand that category to like more games.
So then, best family game: It Takes Two, Mario Party Superstars, New Pokemon Snap, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and WarioWare Get It Together. For me, I feel like Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is... I never played the original on Wii U. So this is something that was super fun to me, and also had a huge tail, because like the Super Mario 3D World game seems to just like keep going. Like you beat it, and then there's just like a whole other world that unlocks. And Bowser's Fury was super fun, but I don't know. It might go to It Takes Two, because
it's that category crossover thing again, right? Like how can it be nominated for Game of the Year and not when it's like singular
That's
category
true.
like that? Yeah, I'm with you though. I mean, I haven't played the other games in this category, but I did love Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury. Like, it was one of the early games that I played this year, like fairly early on within the first few months of the year. And like the Bowser's Fury stuff in particular, I really enjoyed.
It was so good.
Yeah, it is very, very good. So I mean, this is where I would put my vote, but I don't know if my vote counts as much since I've not played the other games. You know what I mean? It's like a weird, like, do I really deserve to get to say this is the best one when I've not played the others? But it's the only one that interests me, frankly, out of this group. So I don't know.
Sports game we can skip.
Well, actually, I do have a thought on this, because I guess FIFA's in there. I was going to say all of them are racing games, which maybe tells you something about the sports category. But no, I did actually start playing Forza Horizon 5. I'm not a big racing game fan, but it is on Game Pass, and everybody's been talking about how it's like a Game of the Year candidate. And so I was like, well, I should try it. And I don't know if I'm going to spend a whole lot more time with it, but I get it. Like, I understand why people are like gaga over it. I think it's one of the best looking games that has come out this year. And like what it's doing in terms of like making a car game appealing is like really, really unexpected, at least for me, because I don't play a lot of car games, but I think it's actually really good.
Honestly, I would have said that my vote was probably for Riders Republic, just because that Leo Vader guy on the MinMax was talking about it, about how crazy it was.
Yeah, and I have played some Riders Republic as well. They're similar games, actually, Forza Horizon 5 and Riders Republic, because they're like big, sprawling open worlds where you can kind of go around and do different races, and like pretty much every race you do, you're like unlocking something. Like they're giving you another car, or they're giving you like a bike or like a snowboard or something in Riders Republic. And I think they're both good at what they're doing. The problem is, I think Riders Republic, like the vibe of it is like, it's a little like, hello fellow children, like, you know, that that meme of it's that, where it's adults trying to sound like cool, hip, you know, young like skater people, but you can tell that they're trying too hard and it's just not working. And it's a little corny and cheeseball, and you just kind of roll your eyes at it and you're like, okay, you can stop. Like, this is just annoying at this point. Whereas I'm not getting that vibe at all with Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there's that aspect that I think you have to take into account. But the one that's not on here, that should have been on here, that maybe would have been my vote, is Cruise and Blast.
Oh yeah, you were talking about how good that was.
It's very good, especially if you like old 90s style arcade racers. I've played a bunch of it, and I really like it. I think I've unlocked all the cars now. I recommend that one for sure.
The shark or whatever?
Oh yeah, there's a shark, there's a unicorn, there's a alien spaceship, there's a school bus, a cop car. I like everything, like all the weird things. There's a dinosaur, a triceratops. It's like all out insanity. Like, it's super over the top. It takes like under a minute to complete a race, so you're not tied to it for like super long chunks of time. It's like super easy to just be like, well, I'm waiting for this thing to export that I'm working on my computer. I'm just gonna grab my Switch and play through a race, and by the time I finish it, I'll be good to go. So you can like play in little brief spurts like that, and so I've just been doing that every now and then.
What do you think about this multiplayer, best multiplayer? There's Back 4 Blood, Knockout City, It Takes Two, Monster Hunter Rise, New World, and Valheim.
I think it'll be Valheim.
I think it's either going to be Valheim or It Takes Two. I think it's between those two, but I think you're right. Valheim did have a crazy moment this year, which I think is ongoing a little bit. It has died down a little bit, but definitely more of a moment than It Takes Two had.
Well, I know people love Back 4 Blood as well, but I also feel like that maybe didn't explode as big as I thought it was going to.
No, I don't think so.
And I like New World. That's the one in this group that I've played. So my vote would maybe go for New World, but I think Valheim is one of those that like was such a huge deal when it came out, and it like persisted for a long time, that I think that maybe that's where this category is going.
Now, here's another hard one.
Yeah.
Best debut indie. So The Artful Escape, which you've talked about, The Forgotten City, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Sable, or Valheim.
Sable's one of those games that like came and went. And I don't know if it was like a blip on my radar, and then I thought it was going to get more attention than it did, but it seems to have come out and I like never heard anything. Like I heard about the game and people talking about it before it launched, but then it like launched and I never heard any sort of follow up on it. So don't know about that one. I think there is a lot of love out there for Kena, but I think Valheim is the one that just like there's so much.
I would say either a Valheim or Forgotten City. The Forgotten City is something I really want to play.
I want to play it as well.
I have not gotten around to
yet.
Yet.
Same here. I've heard nothing but
just
good things about it.
the premise of it is so interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like when 12 Minutes came out and everybody was like disappointed with it, they used that as an opportunity to be like, there's a like the concept behind this game is cool. The Forgotten City is like a much better execution on it, and that's what you should be playing instead of that. And so it's been on my backlog as something I would like to get to, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But I hear it's great, and also another Game of the Year candidate for a lot of people.
Now, speaking of Game of the Year, the next category is Most Anticipated Game, and I think it's likely that any of these games, when they release, could be the Game of the Year.
Yeah. So I sent you a text and I was like, if this year has felt a little light on like those surefire, like big Game of the Year candidates, like next year is going to be like an all out like battle royale for like the most hotly anticipated games that will be like Game of the Year candidates.
So we've got Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Breath of the Wild 2, and Starfield.
Okay, I want you to put these in order of your, like, how you rank them in terms of anticipation.
Man.
It's hard to do.
I think Breath of the Wild 2 might be number one for me.
Okay, really?
Just because I know it's a known quantity, and well, it kind of is, and I know that I'm going to play it and love it. I beat Breath of the Wild 1. I don't know that I've ever successfully beat a Bethesda game, any of them, even though I've played a ton of them.
Really?
So I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just get, bogged down in doing all the guild quests and just like wandering around. And then eventually after I played for like 2 months, I just kind of die off because I've put like 60 hours into it or something. But so I'll say Breath of the Wild 2 is my number one. And then Starfield is 2. God of War is 3. Elden Ring is 4. And then I don't care at all about Horizon Forbidden West. What about you?
So I am going to play all of these games, I think. And my list is probably the exact opposite of how the rest of the internet would put this together.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say
no. I think mine is Starfield as the number one.
I get it. I mean, I understand that.
Because I have finished a lot of those Bethesda games, like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, Skyrim, Oblivion. Like, I love those games. And so the idea of bringing that forward into like a space exploration game is like very, very intriguing to me. So
I agree.
And I think that's also like, I feel like the internet would probably have that as the last one here. Maybe Horizon, but probably Starfield. I think the internet's list would go Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild, God of War, Horizon, and then Starfield. But for me, it's the opposite. It's Starfield. And then, gosh, I'm back and forth on God of War and Breath of the Wild too. I don't know which one I am more anticipating. It might be God of War, but maybe that's because of recency bias. Like, I've played the first God of War more recently than Breath of the Wild. But it's put those in some sort of order behind Starfield, and then go Elden Ring, and then Horizon Forbidden West. I think that's how I would order that.
That's a fair ranking.
Are we both behind the idea that Elden Ring is for sure going to win this category?
I mean, I feel like it's either going to be Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild 2, especially. Well, it doesn't matter if they show footage of Breath of the Wild 2 because the voting will already have ended. But I don't know, man. I feel like there is a following for Breath of the Wild 2, but maybe you are right that Elden Ring is what everybody wants. I think you're probably right. It will be Elden Ring, but I think that it could be Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, I mean, I love Breath of the Wild 1 as well, but I feel like there's so much like chatter on the internet about Elden Ring and so many people looking forward to that game.
Agree.
And plus like the recent like explosion of like people seeing content and like being able to actually play it. If you got into that like tech test that they did, I feel like that probably gave it a lot of momentum heading into this.
I agree.
So I feel like it will be Elden Ring, but
it's going to be fun to watch. We'll definitely have a big show about it after it happens because there's going to be a ton of trailers and stuff. There's probably going to be huge news from it. There always is. Jeff Keighley is always good about getting those exclusives.
New game announcements. It's going to be a really fun show. It's going to be on December 9th. So hopefully after that, we'll be able to put together a podcast running down everything that won and all the new announcements, and that'll be a lot of fun to do. I guess I already went over the ones I thought were snubbed a little bit, but I think there were a lot of people that were disappointed that Returnal and Forza Horizon 5 did not get nominated for Game of the Year. I would have thrown Tales of Horizon there, even though I know that's probably not like the mass appeal game that would have been nominated for Game of the Year, but
yeah.
Anything else you've been playing or watching this week?
I watched Shang-Chi because it came out for free on Disney Plus, and I liked it. I think it could have been a little shorter, but overall good. I was not super into some of the comedy of it, but a pretty good movie. Did you watch it?
I have not, no.
I think it's fine. There were some things I would have changed, but it was good. It was not a terrible movie.
The thing I'm more interested in,
I've just been playing Halo Infinite.
The thing I'm more interested in hearing about is you say you've seen the first episode of Cowboy Bebop.
Yes. Okay. Listen. I love Cowboy Bebop, and it was very formative for me to watch it in high school. The first episode was not terrible. I'm going to continue to watch it. There was nothing that I found too offensive about it that they changed. Jet has like a daughter now, which is dumb. But overall, I was pretty positive on it. Until they released a video introducing the Ed character to live action.
I was wondering how that was going to translate.
What's crazy is I think that it translated 1-to-1.
Really?
But
was that a mistake?
It was a mistake to do.
That's what I thought.
Unfortunately, when you translate that 1-to-1 into real life, it becomes what the youth call cringe in today's day and age. I'm not looking forward to that. I also don't know if that is part of this season or if that's maybe like a teaser for next season. But I'm pro that not really being a thing in this first season. I'm going to continue to watch it and enjoy it, I think. But man, oh man, I was riding fairly high on it being not terrible until I saw that like minute-long clip. And after that, I was like, man, they... I don't know that they needed to have that at all, actually.
I mean, this was the big question mark heading into the first season of Cowboy Bebop is how would they translate that character and would it work? And it sounds like no.
It's not great. No, it's unfortunately bad. But I mean, there it is. I'm gonna watch the full season and I'll do like a little mini review. Maybe if you watch it, we'll even do a Starside Flicks on it or something like that. But yeah, hopefully, maybe they'll get some feedback from this and they'll realize that maybe Ed needs to only be in like one episode or something. But
I mean,
who knows? It also is. It's possible that she is introduced like in episode 4 or something and is just in the show. I don't know. I have only watched first episode, but my hope is that this is something exterior or external or in additional to the current season.
I have heard that they stayed pretty true to the original show to the point where it was like, was it even necessary to make this?
I mean, they've changed some things, and it is interesting to see it in real life. And definitely there are some things that are different. More and more, I think, as I go along, it will further diverge. The first episode is, like, pretty similar in plot to the first episode of the anime. Although Faye is in it, and they changed some other stuff around. But the guy who's playing Jet is great. And his voice sounds exactly like the American voice actor for Jet. Like, in the first scene that he's in, I did like a double take. I was like, man, was he the voice actor back in the day? But I don't think he was. John Cho is good. He seems like a nice guy in general.
I was gonna say,
life.
Like, so I have nothing against John Cho, but the criticism of that casting was that he's like maybe twice the age of what the character is supposed to be. Do you know what
I don't know. I don't really see his age when I watch him do it. But I mean, I guess intellectually I know that he is pretty old, but I don't know. I think there was some backlash about the character or the person who's playing Faye. Yeah. But at least in the first episode, I don't mind the way she's portraying her. She's like a little more high energy than Faye was, and a little more like rough and tough. But I'm sort of into that, and I think she's doing a good job. Again, I've only seen the first episode, which is an hour long, but my initial review of the pilot is that it's not terrible.
Okay, ringing endorsement for Cowboy Bebop on Netflix.
Yeah.
But why don't you hit us with your parting wisdom?
Zach, it was Halloween recently, and I was like, well, what should I do? I should get a costume for my cat. Unfortunately, cat costumes are not super available the day of Halloween. They seem to be switching things out pretty quick these days.
Christmas stuff's already out
so
by
I missed
then.
out on that. Yeah. I found a Christmas sweater that she could wear that she kind of didn't hate, but I got a piece of advice from one of my other friends, and he told me that if you figure out the size of your cat, there's probably a 1-to-1 match between your cat and a certain type type of baby onesie, like a 3-month-old onesie, or because they grow so fast, there's like, I think they go by like months, like, oh, this is a 10-month-old onesie, this is a onesie for like a 2-month-old. So if you find out where your cat sits in that range, you can just start buying like onesies and costumes for babies and putting them on your cat.
Oh, I never would have thought of that, but I also don't have kids. Or a cat.
I also wouldn't have thought of that, but I have not done it yet. But I have my eye on some Christmas baby attire that I'm thinking about buying my cat for the winter season. So stay tuned for that.
You gonna upload these photos to your Instagram?
Maybe I will. My Instagram is basically just pictures of my cat.
I was gonna say, maybe you can send them to me and I'll put them on the Starside Cafe Instagram.
That's a good idea.
So be looking out for that. Follow Starside Cafe on Instagram. And follow us on Twitter as well at Starside Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you search Starside Cafe, you'll find us on there. This podcast, Starside Chat, is on pretty much all the services, so you can just search for Starside Chat on there. You can send us an email with questions, comments, any of that at starsidecafe@gmail.com, and leave us a review, a rating on iTunes. They still call it iTunes, right?
I think so.
I don't know. I'm an old man. Who knows?
Apple Music? Apple Podcast? I actually have no idea.
We're out of touch with the Apple ecosystem. We both use Android stuff, so. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.